Hey everybody, welcome to Top 10 Monster Hunter Monsters. I will be taking on the great challenge of trying to pick 10 monsters out of all the great amount of monsters there are in the series. So to break this thing down, let's get the rules going. First rule is I'll only be including large monsters and no elder dragons. Second rule is that I'll be lumping in subspecies grouped into the normal monster itself. That way we can give extra consideration for the monsters to have a spot and not only give one monster a spot that a subspecies could be a part of. Instead, they're going to be together. And lastly, most important rule of all, everything on this list is complete facts and objectively correct. If you disagree, that's cool, but you're going to be wrong. With all that said, let's get started. Number 10, Astalos. Astalos is one of the more recent additions to the Monster Hunter roster, but this electric dragonfly did not come to take part, he came to take over. Even though he's just one of the more recent monsters in Monster Hunter history, this guy's captivated me and many other people, I'm sure. He's got an incredible theme song, the score is just great. He's strong, fast, his attacks lightning quick because he's an electric monster, of course, and he looks just really fucking cool, which is always important. Also, throughout the video, don't roast me too hard on my noob moves and the gameplay that I make throughout the video. It's pretty funny at the very least. I was just a little rusty, that's all. But anyway, Astalos, he easily earns a spot on this list due to how much he captivated me in my first time fighting him and Monster Hunter Generations. Yeah. Out of the 4 flagships, he's my favorite. Anyway, let's move on to number 9. Number 9, Great Jaggi. No, your eyes didn't deceive you. This is not a joke. Great Jaggi is genuinely one of my favorite monsters. He makes it here today because out of all the initial boss monsters in Monster Hunter, whether it's the dromes like Velocidrome, or the other greats like Great Jaggi, he is the original for me, and a staple in the series. In fact, I love this guy so much that I started an entire new game on Monster Hunter 3U back in the day, where I only used his armor all the way to the end. And with that said, let's move on to number 8. Number 8, Gore Magala. Gore is a beautiful beast. He also has a memorable theme and impact on the series for me. Gore is really unique because he's essentially a baby form of a monster. Really like an incomplete form. And he has 2 other very notable versions of him, which are kind of his other forms, which is the chaotic Gore Magala and the final transformation, which is the Gore Magala. Ikeda Gore Magala is kind of like a impure final form, kind of like Imperfect Cell from Dragon Ball Z. And then you got the Gore Magala, which is just an elegant beast of a monster, who is his final form, which he becomes an Elder Dragon. And it's a very cool lore thing for this monster to start from, you know, a baby and end up becoming an Elder Dragon. It's really cool to see that. And not only that, but during the battle itself, he does this with all his forms. He, in his rage state, is very cool and unique because you'll see the sky kind of start to clear, and he jumps up and screams, and it's very cool. The clouds like part, the sky darkens, and he changes his form. His horns come out. He looks notably more colorful. It's really cool. Overall, just a really cool fight and an even cooler monster. And with that said, let's move on to number 7. Number 7, Rathian / Gold Rathian / All Rathians. This guy right here, or girl rather, there's really only 2 monsters that are so iconic in the series and memorable, and that are the first of their kind, really. And that's Rathalos and Rathian. And for me, Rathian is better and stands out as more memorable and special to me, because one of my most memorable moments when I was a kid playing Monster Hunter Freedom Unite was watching that opening video every time I turned the PSP on and seeing that guy dress up in Rathian armor and fighting the Rathians with his friends, and it was just a really cool scene, and I loved the way it looked. So I made the armor, and from then on I started beating up monsters with Rathian armor, and it's just a beautiful set of armor. And as for the Rathians themselves, these guys, they poison and they got fireballs. That's really the 2 main things they do to you. And I'll admit, it is frustrating. It's a very annoying monster at times, but let's be honest here. You envy that person walking around in gold Rathian armor, because not only do they have that great luck skill, and they're getting all that loot, but also they look damn good doing it too. With that said, let's move on to number 6. Number 6, Barioth. Barioth is the first ice monster I actually gave a shit about. Not to hate on ice monsters, because ice monsters are really cool, but the problem is that, before Monster Hunter Iceborne, there were very few ice monsters that were, in general, but then also that were memorable. And monsters that are weak to ice are kind of far and few between, really. You don't see that often. The most common weakness is thunder. So fighting thunder monsters is a lot more common than fighting an ice monster. So why Barioth? Well, I don't really have a deep story for this one, I'll be honest. I just think he's a badass, and he's got really cool equipment, and he's a ton of fun to fight. That's really it. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5, Ukanlos. Speaking of memorable, badass ice monsters, we got Ukanlos, whose name, first off, I like to imagine when you select a character in Smash, and the announcer says it in a very dramatic way. I like to imagine Ukanlos is like that too. You know, you just imagine Ukanlos. I mean, that's just a fucking cool name. But this monster. Now, if I had to ask you, what classification does this monster go under? You know, what would you say? I'll give you a little time to think about that. Now, if you guessed Flying Wyvern, you'd be correct. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see any wings on this bad boy, and he certainly doesn't fly. So it, begs the question: why is he Flying Wyvern? I don't know. I don't make the rules. But hey, we got guys like Kieran running around, who's literally just a pony with a, unicorn horn and some lightning, and he's an Elder Dragon. While this guy's not only an Elder Dragon, but he's not even a Brute Wyvern or a Fanged Wyvern. He's just a Flying Wyvern for whatever reason. But hey, that's cool. I don't make the rules. Capcom does, but. This literal giant ice shovel, Ukanlos, is a cool-ass monster. He's got a great mix set back in Monster Hunter 4U, which took over the entire game. Almost everybody was wearing that thing because it was just one of the best armor sets you could make. And mix sets are always fun, and when one gets really popular, it just takes over the game, really. This monster is just one of the coolest monsters you'll ever fight, and I was happy to fight him for the first time at 4U because I wasn't able to get to the point where I could play him back in the old games. So playing him in the 4U and later on in Monster Hunter Double Cross, he's just a fucking cool-ass monster, and I'm glad I got to fight him. But with that said, let's move on to number 4. Number 4, Nargacuga. Much like Rathian, Monster Hunter 3D9 gave me great memories fighting my way up to this mysterious monster in the opening scene. At the time, you didn't really know what that monster was because the scene had a good way of hyping it up and making you want to get to the point in the game where you could fight that monster. And, when I finally did, it was certainly a memorable moment. And like you'd expect, he destroyed my 12-year-old self. But that's okay. I bounced back and managed to make his armor and weapons, and which I used for another majority of the game. This fighting cat here, flying cat. This flying cat is really a common pick for favorites among fans of Monster Hunter because, it's really easy to see why. He's got those crazy glowing red eyes when he jumps around and charges at you. He's got quick, precise movements that make you respect his abilities. That is until you get to the end game. and collect your 73rd Nargacuga mantle. Anyway, let's move on to number 3. Number 5, Bloodbath Diablos. Bloodbath Diablos is one of the most badass deviant monsters there is, and my personal favorite. This guy is pissed the entire fight and gets stronger as you deal damage to him and as the fight goes on. He does not hold your hand at all. Bloodbath Diablos has multiple one-shot moves and even has trap moves where he can suspend you in an animation and then proceed to kill you for the 3rd time in a row as you blame your friends for not eating for feline insurance and rage quit the lobby. No, but seriously, he's a hard but fun challenge. Overcoming him is a very satisfying thing, and getting that crown on your head after you beat him. And he's most certainly a favorite, and permanent favorite of mine. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, Lagiacrus. Now this decision of whether to put Lagiacrus at number 2 or number 1, him and the number 1 monster, I switched back and forth over and over. I couldn't really decide which one I liked more, so I really had to think about it. The decision just kept me up at night, really. But I ultimately decided that he would be the number 2 monster. Lagiacrus has a special place in my heart because back in the day when Monster Hunter Tri was still had an active following online because the servers were still up, that game is what really solidified my love for this series. A lot of them are good. A lot of the Monster Hunters are good, but for me, Monster Hunter Tri was the first game to just really suck me in completely and just drain away all my time. And a lot of that goes into the online world that I got to experience. It was very memorable. I made a lot of friends. Unfortunately, every friend that I made on Monster Hunter 3 Tri didn't carry over to now, which is unfortunate, but later on I made some friends from Monster Hunter 3U that did carry over, and that game had a huge impact on me as well. And guess what? Lagiacrus is still one of the flagships of that game. So you could really go either way on that, but Lagiacrus has a special place in my heart for a lot of reasons. And that really is the biggest one, is that he brought together my love for the series, really. With that said, let's move on to the undisputed champion, number 1. Number 1, Tigrex. Tigrex is obviously my favorite monster, but why is that? Well, it's going to be another back in the day story. The very first Monster Hunter I ever played was Monster Hunter 2. In Monster Hunter 2, the flagship monster is Tigrex. You first meet Tigrex in that very scene that I showed just before this. You are doing a quest where you deliver 3 Popo tongues, and you get interrupted by the most scariest monster in the world, and you have nightmares for the next few weeks because you're a kid. But the cool thing is that Tigrex is just a freaking beast. He's easily one of the coolest monsters ever. even if you don't think he's your favorite. And he's also he's basically based off a tiger, you know, obviously in the name Tigrex. He's got the color scheme and everything. And tigers are my favorite animal in the real world. So a tiger monster is just cool. But what's also really great about Tigrex is that he's got this scream. All of his forms do this scream. The brute Tigrex is the best, but this scream right here, like, will literally send you back if you're too close. It will literally make you fly back and do damage, which is super cool. And one of the ways he keeps people off of him. And when I first fought Tigrex, I knew instantly that I was going to make this guy's armor and defeat him. It took a long time to get to the point in the game where you could actually fight him and beat him like that. And when I finally did, it was a very memorable moment. I remember that I had to kind of take it to like a tactical plan, really, because to beat Tigrex and to farm him for his equipment, I needed an efficient way to beat him over and over. So that's when I made that Kezu Shock Sword, which I'm also using in this video here, which is, you know, a callback to the old me back in the day. But that Kezu Shock Sword was good enough to beat Tigrex because he's weak to lightning and had a decent enough sharpness, and it taught me how to use the Great Sword properly. But Tigrex also taught me how to really play, really, because before Tigrex, you're kind of slamming your head against the wall on some of the monsters. But after I mastered Tigrex, every other monster became easy. So, for me, that's really the reason why Tigrex is number one. And throughout this series, I've always made his armor. He's just always going to be that number one monster in my heart. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching this far. If you guys liked it, please give me a like. Give me some feedback on what you think. What are your favorite monsters? You know, who would you put in your list? I'd love to know. Love to discuss it with you in the comments. And let me know what you want to see in the future. Bye-bye.